Everyone talks about the Texas miracle. It's the story we all know: booming tech hubs, massive suburbs popping up overnight, and an economy that seems unstoppable. But if you drive just a little ways past the neon lights of Austin or the endless construction zones in Dallas, the scenery changes fast. A much harsher reality starts to set in. You end up in the forgotten corners of the Lone Star State. These are the places where the oil boom went bust a long time ago, and the promise of a better life packed its bags and left. This isn't the Texas of shiny new skyscrapers. It's a landscape of boarded-up shops, crumbling roads, and a silence that feels heavier than any rush-hour traffic. While the rest of the country sees Texas as a powerhouse of growth, the data heading into 2026 tells a completely different story for these specific communities. They are spiraling toward becoming ghost towns. Today we are taking a sobering road trip through 10 cities that are losing residents faster than they can fix their potholes. We're going to look at a former coastal giant that is literally sinking into the ground and a historic oil town where for rent signs outnumber the actual people living there. One of the places on our list has a crime rate so high it's forcing out families who have lived there for generations. Another is facing an economic collapse so bad that experts think the town might barely exist as a municipality 10 years from now. If you value uncovering the hard truths about these forgotten places and want to support this kind of on-the-ground reporting, please hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe for more deep dives, and leave a comment below if you've ever driven through one of these fading towns. Now check your gas gauge and buckle up because we are heading straight into the heart of the decline. Number 10. Paris. Driving into northeast Texas, you might jokingly expect a little bit of that European charm from the city's namesake. But the reality of Paris, Texas, is a pretty harsh wake-up call compared to the City of Light. Instead of romance and busy sidewalk cafes, you're met with a heavy quiet that seems to just hang in the humid air. Even the famous replica Eiffel Tower with its red cowboy hat feels less like a fun roadside quirk these days and more like a leftover from a time when this town still had a sense of humor. Cruising down Lamar Avenue, you can't help but notice the sheer number of for lease signs and dusty windows that look like they haven't been opened in years. It's clear that the economic engine that used to drive this community has stalled out, leaving the workforce scrambling to find stability in a modern world that's moving on without them. The numbers paint a tough picture too. According to recent census data, the poverty rate in Paris has climbed to nearly 22%, which is significantly higher than the national average. You can actually feel that financial strain driving through the neighborhoods, where basic maintenance has been put off for decades. The median household income here is hovering around $42,000, drastically lower than the Texas average, which makes keeping up with inflation nearly impossible for most residents. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has pointed out that manufacturing jobs, once the lifeblood of this area, have been on a steady decline. And unfortunately, the low-wage retail jobs replacing them just aren't cutting it. The housing market tells an even ghostlier story. While real estate values have exploded across the rest of the state, home values here have stagnated, with a vacancy rate sitting right around 12%. The issue isn't just that people are leaving, it's that nobody is coming in to replace them. It's been a slow bleed, with the population dropping by nearly 2% in the last 5 years as young people pack up for the Metroplex, usually never looking back. Walking through the downtown plaza, you can see the potential of what this place used to be. But the cracked sidewalks and vacant storefronts are undeniable proof of a city that is slowly fading off the map. It is a heartbreaking spot to start our journey, watching a place with such a unique identity losing its fight for survival. Number 9. Kingsville. Heading south toward the coast, the landscape shifts into brush country, eventually leading you to the city limits of Kingsville. Historically, this place is famous for the legendary King Ranch and the Naval Air Station, so you might assume there's a built-in economic safety net here. But once you navigate these streets, it becomes clear that relying on just a few key industries has actually left the city pretty vulnerable. The energy here feels stagnant, almost like a clock that stopped ticking somewhere around 2015. You'll drive past housing developments that were originally built for a boom that eventually fizzled out. Now, it is just a patchwork of occupied homes sitting next to abandoned properties, which drags down property values for the whole neighborhood. The data regarding Kingsville's future is genuinely concerning. Reports from the Texas Workforce Commission indicate that local unemployment consistently trends higher than the state average, often spiking above 6% even when the rest of Texas is at full employment. This lack of opportunity is driving a mass exodus. Demographic data reveals that the population has decreased by over 4% in the last decade, a rapid decline for a city of this size. You can see the consequences of this outmigration in the local schools, where falling enrollment numbers are leading to budget cuts and further consolidation. Financial instability is widespread here. The poverty rate is staggering, sitting at roughly 25% according to recent estimates. That means 1 in 4 people you pass on the street is living below the poverty line. The median property value is stuck around $110,000, a number that sounds affordable until you realize it reflects a complete lack of demand. Crime is another major factor pushing people away. Data shows that property crime rates here are nearly double the national average, likely a symptom of that economic despair. As you leave town, passing the shuttered businesses along the highway, you get the distinct sense that Kingsville is becoming a shell of its former self, a place where the history is rich, but the future looks incredibly poor. Number 8. Pampa. Your journey now takes you deep into the Texas Panhandle, a place where the wind is relentless and the horizon seems to stretch on forever. Pampa used to be known as the top of Texas, a thriving hub built on the back of oil and agriculture. But as you roll into town today, the silence is almost deafening. The classic architecture in the downtown area stands like a monument to a wealthy past, but these days, those buildings are largely empty vessels. The dust seems to settle a little thicker here, coating the windows of businesses that shut their doors during the last oil bust and never managed to reopen. It feels isolated, not just geographically but economically cut off from the prosperity that is reshaping other parts of the state. The statistics for Pampa read almost like an obituary for a rural town. The population has fallen to just under 16,000 people, which is a decline of nearly 9% since its peak. That isn't just a fluctuation, that is a collapse. According to regional economic reports, the heavy dependency on the oil and gas sector has been devastating. Because of that sector's volatility, median household incomes have stagnated at around $48,000. When you compare that to the rising cost of living, the math simply doesn't work for the families trying to stay here. The housing vacancy rate in Pampa is alarming, currently estimated at nearly 18%. That means almost 1 in every 5 structures you see is empty. You can drive through residential streets and spot houses that are surrendering to the elements, with sagging roofs and overgrown yards. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics highlights a shrinking labor force, which means that even if new businesses wanted to open here, there might not be enough workers to staff them. Additionally, the population is aging rapidly as high school graduates leave for Amarillo or Lubbock immediately after receiving their diplomas. It creates a ghost town dynamic where the infrastructure remains, but the life force required to maintain it is evaporating into the panhandle wind. It is a stark reminder of how quickly a resource-dependent town can crumble when the resources, or the demand for them, dry up. Number 7. Vernon. Continuing through the northern stretches of the state, right near the Oklahoma border, you arrive in Vernon. Driving down the main drag here creates a visceral reaction. It honestly feels like walking onto a movie set where production wrapped 20 years ago and everybody just went home. The wide streets are eerily empty, and those beautiful vintage neon signs that once lit up the night are now dark and broken. Vernon has a rich history, sure, but history doesn't pay the bills. Over the years, the closure and downsizing of state facilities have gutted the local economy, and you can see the scars of those decisions on just about every block. It is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, but lately they mostly seem to know who just moved away. The data surrounding Vernon is pretty bleak. The population has dipped below 10,000 residents, a psychological and economic threshold that usually spells trouble for funding and city services. Census estimates show a population decline of roughly 6% over the last 8 years. Even more shocking is the poverty rate, which hovers around 21%. You can actually see this economic hardship in the condition of the cars on the road and the state of the local grocery stores, which often have limited stock and very few customers. Crime has also become a significant issue, especially relative to the town's small size. Recent statistics indicate that the violent crime rate here is nearly 3 times higher than the Texas average, a terrifying reality for a rural community. This safety concern is a major driver for the vacancy rate, which real estate data places at roughly 15%. Houses here can be bought for less than $80,000. Yet they sit on the market for months, sometimes even years. The median household income is a meager $39,000, leaving families with little disposable income to support local businesses. As you drive past the shuttered storefronts of what used to be a vibrant downtown square, the sense of abandonment is palpable. Vernon is fighting a war against attrition, and judging by the empty streets, it is a war it is currently losing. Number 6. Snyder. As you make your way into the heart of the Scurry County oil fields, you'll find Snyder. This is a town that has lived and died by the drill bit for a century. But this current downturn feels different. It feels permanent. Driving through the industrial zones on the outskirts of town, you see acres of rusted equipment and auction signs flapping in the wind. It's clear the boom and bust cycle has finally taken a toll that this city just can't bounce back from. The mood here is heavy, a sort of collective exhaustion from riding that economic roller coaster for so long. You'll notice that even the chain restaurants, which are usually the last holdouts, look tired and understaffed. The numbers for Snyder paint a picture of a community in freefall. The population has dropped by over 7% since 2010, and that trend line is only getting steeper. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the local unemployment rate is consistently unstable, fluctuating wildly with oil prices but trending upward over the long haul. The median home value sits around $85,000, a figure that signals a complete collapse in demand. You could buy a house here for the price of a luxury car. Yet, real estate listings show properties languishing on the market for hundreds of days. The vacancy rate in Snyder is approaching 16%. And as you drive through the neighborhoods, you can see the blight spreading like an infection. One empty house on a block leads to two, and soon the whole street starts to feel unsafe. Educational data shows a sharp decline in school enrollment, forcing the district to slash budgets and cut programs, which only accelerates the flight of families with children. The median household income is roughly $52,000, but with the cost of goods rising due to the town's remote location, that money just doesn't go very far. It is a tragedy of geography and geology. Snyder gave everything it had to the energy industry, and now that the industry has evolved, the town is being left behind to rust in the West Texas sun. Number 5. Alice. Making your way deep into South Texas, you eventually reach Alice, known locally as the hub city of the region. For decades, this place was the logistical heartbeat of the oil patch, a town where the trucks never stopped rolling and the money flowed freely. But navigating the highways that intersect the town today, you realize the traffic is gone. The massive industrial yards that used to house drilling rigs and fleets of trucks have turned into graveyards of steel. The silence in these industrial parks is actually kind of haunting. You get the distinct feeling that the world has moved on to renewable energy and automated drilling, leaving Alice with infrastructure built for a past that just doesn't exist anymore. The economic devastation here is backed up by some shocking statistics. The poverty rate in Alice has surged to nearly 28%. That means almost 1/3 of the population is struggling just to meet their basic needs. Census data reveals a population decline of approximately 5% in just the last few years. Driving down Main Street, the number of closed businesses is startling. We aren't just talking about chains, we're talking about multi-generational family stores that have finally had to throw in the towel. Sales tax revenue, a key indicator of economic health, has plummeted, leaving the city with fewer resources to fix the crumbling roads you're currently driving on. Real estate data indicates that home values have depreciated, with the median value hovering near $90,000. The residential vacancy rate is creeping up toward 14%, but the commercial vacancy rate looks even higher, which is visibly evident in the hollowed-out strip malls. Crime rates have also seen an uptick, with property crime rising as economic desperation sets in. The median income is barely $40,000, which is simply insufficient to sustain a robust local economy. Alice was built to serve an industry that has consolidated and moved elsewhere. Without a new purpose, it is rapidly turning into a ghost town where the only thing remaining is the heat. Number 4. Big Spring. Returning to the crossroads of West Texas, Big Spring emerges from the landscape, dominated by the silhouette of its refinery. However, that industrial skyline betrays the reality on the ground. As soon as you exit the highway, the first thing you notice is the grit. This town feels worn down, battered by both the elements and a harsh economic reality. The majestic historic hotel downtown stands tall, but it towers over streets that are lined with empty buildings and cracked pavement. There is a transient feel to the population here, almost as if no one plans to stay longer than they absolutely have to. Big Spring's decline is backed by alarming data. The violent crime rate here is one of the highest in the state for a city of its size, ranking in the top tier according to FBI uniform crime reporting. This safety issue is a massive deterrent for new residents and businesses. The population has seen a steady decline, dropping by roughly 3% recently, but the turnover is high. The poverty rate sits at nearly 20%, and you can see the impact in the dilapidated housing stock on the north and east sides of town. Housing data shows a vacancy rate of over 17%. You drive past block after block where boarded-up windows are the norm. The median home value is incredibly low, around $100,000, yet the market is stagnant. Health indicators for the county are also poor, with limited access to specialized medical care forcing residents to travel to Midland or Odessa. The median household income is about $51,000, but the cost of insurance and security due to the high crime rate eats away at that paycheck. Big Spring feels like a place holding its breath, waiting for a savior that is not coming while the buildings slowly surrender to the West Texas dust. Number 3. Burke Burnett. Heading north near the Oklahoma border just past Wichita Falls, you arrive in Burnett. This town was once the setting for Hollywood stories about wild oil booms, but as you roll through the quiet streets today, that drama has completely evaporated. The atmosphere is eerily calm, honestly, almost too quiet for a weekday afternoon. You realize pretty quickly that this is a community that is graying out. You don't really see young families walking with strollers or teenagers hanging out at local spots. Instead, you see retirees maintaining homes that they likely bought decades ago. It serves as a bedroom community, but even that function is failing as the regional job market contracts and young people look for opportunities in the larger metroplexes to the south. The demographic cliff here is steep and dangerous. The median age in town is significantly higher than the Texas average, and census data reveals that the population has declined by nearly 4% since the last major count. This brain drain is evident in the local school district, where enrollment numbers have been dropping, leading to budget constraints. The poverty rate is creeping up, currently sitting around 15%, but the trajectory is what is truly worrisome. You can feel the lack of economic vitality as you pass the sparse commercial district. Economic development reports show a stagnant rate of new business applications, meaning the tax base is shrinking while the infrastructure continues to age. The housing market offers perhaps the most telling sign of a ghost town in the making. While the vacancy rate is roughly 10%, the days on market for homes is excruciatingly long. It isn't that houses are abandoned, but rather that when an older resident passes away or moves to assisted living, there is no one lining up to buy the property. The median income is around $60,000, which seems healthy on paper, but it is deceptive. That figure is skewed by an established older population, while the earning potential for the younger demographic is almost non-existent here. As you drive out of town, the overwhelming feeling is one of slow-motion attrition. Burnett isn't crashing and burning, it is simply fading away quiet block by quiet block. Number 2, Port Arthur. You are now descending into the humid industrial heart of the Gulf Coast to visit a city that feels like it is fighting a war against nature itself. The drive into Port Arthur is surreal. You are flanked by massive refineries and chemical plants belching steam into the air, a display of industrial might that contrasts sharply with the neighborhoods you are about to enter. This city has been battered by repeated hurricanes and floods, and the scars are visible on literally every street. As you navigate the potholed roads, you see water lines still stained on the bricks of abandoned homes from the last major storm. Entire blocks have been bulldozed and left to return to the swamp. It feels apocalyptic, a place where the environment and a collapsing economy have conspired to push humanity out. The devastation here is quantified by staggering statistics. The population has plummeted, losing over 10% of its residents in the last decade alone, making it one of the fastest shrinking cities in the entire state. The poverty rate is astronomical, hovering around 27%. According to the Census Bureau, the median household income is roughly $36,000, which is poverty-level wages for a family in modern America. You can actually feel the struggle in the air. The downtown area, which was once a bustling commercial hub, is now a ghost town of boarded-up skyscrapers and empty department stores that loom over the street like tombstones. Crime is rampant and unchecked in many areas. Port Arthur consistently ranks high for violent crime per capita, making it dangerous to walk the streets after dark. The vacancy rate is among the highest in the nation, with nearly 20% of housing units standing empty or abandoned. Real estate values are incredibly depressed, with median home prices sitting around $65,000. Yet, few people are buying because the risk of flooding is a near certainty. Unemployment remains stubbornly high, often double the state average according to Workforce Commission data. As you drive past the rotting structures, you realize this city isn't just turning into a ghost town. It is being erased house by water, neglect, and a complete lack of hope. Number 1, Beaumont. We have reached the end of the road, and the situation in this final location is the most alarming because of its sheer scale. Just a short drive north from the coast, you enter a city of over 100,000 people that is hollowing out from the inside. You might expect a city of this size to feel alive and vibrant, but as you drive through the city center, the emptiness is jarring. Massive historic buildings, which should be the pride of the region, stand vacant and decaying. The for sale signs are everywhere, plaguing residential lawns and commercial high-rises alike. This was the birthplace of the modern oil industry at Spindletop. But driving through it now, it feels less like a boomtown and more like a place where the American dream has gone to die. The data supports the grim visual reality. Census numbers show that this city is losing population while almost every other major Texas city is gaining, shedding thousands of residents in recent years. The FBI crime data is equally shocking. The city consistently ranks as one of the most dangerous in Texas, with a violent crime rate that rivals major metropolises like Houston or Dallas. This violence is the primary driver pushing families to the suburbs or out of the region entirely. Furthermore, the local water infrastructure has failed famously in recent years, leaving residents without running water for days during extreme weather, which has completely crumbled trust in the local government. Economic indicators are equally depressing. The poverty rate is approximately 20%, affecting a huge swath of the community. The housing market is broken despite low prices. The inventory surplus is massive because people are desperate to sell and leave. The vacancy rate is climbing past 12%, representing thousands of empty homes that drag down the value of entire neighborhoods. Commercial vacancy is also spiking, leaving large retail spaces dark. As you sit at a traffic light in the downtown district, looking at the empty streets and the gray skyline, the reality hits you hard. This is a major American city that is failing. It serves as a stark warning sign for what happens when high crime, infrastructure failure, and economic stagnation collide in one place. As you look in your rearview mirror at the fading skyline of Beaumont, the reality of this road trip settles in. These aren't just points on a map. They are communities where the American dream has hit a dead end. From the windswept plains of the Panhandle to the hurricane-scarred coast, the data shows a Texas that is leaving some of its own behind. If you found this analysis eye-opening and want to help others see the reality beyond the headlines, please hit the like button, share this video with a friend who loves Texas history, and make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our next journey. Drop a comment below and tell us, do you think these towns can be saved or is it too late? Thank you for watching and we will see you on the next one.